Yes, you're seeing what you're seeing. It's an actual Synology FS 1018 12 bay flash station. And no, I did not buy this. There is a crazy man that lives over in the UK, and his name is Sascha Lopez. And Sascha saw me doing a video on SSD storage or some related video, and sent me an email and said, Joe, I've got a flash station 1018 with a 10 gig networking card in it that you are welcome to borrow for 2 or 3 months and do some videos on. And I said, oh sure, I'll do that, Sascha. Yes, please send me a flash station 1018. This thing retails for about $1,600 US. It is well out of my price range. I would never use something like this, nor do I have a client right now that could utilize something like this. But this is going to be an idea of what we can expect to see in the future. So if you saw my day in the life of an IT guy, we went to a client site and replaced a bunch of, it varied between 120 and 256 gig SSD drives for a client that upgraded to 1/2 terabyte drives. And this is what we got. So we ended up with about 8 SSD drives that we had left over, and some are 120, some are 256. It's a good mixture. So I asked the client, I said, look, he knows I do YouTube videos, and I said, would you mind if we kept or borrowed these SSD drives for a while and did some videos on them for my YouTube channel? And he said, sure. And those are the kind of clients I like to deal with best. They allow you to. Ed's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years, and he knows we like to test new stuff. And then ultimately what we test here will end up in his rack somewhere, because Ed is a gadget freak just like I am. So we have a mixture of Samsungs, we have some Kingstons, we have some no-name. I'm assuming they're made by Samsung, or they're made for Dell by Samsung. But we've got about, what do we got there, Jerry? 8 drives to test with. So we can almost fill this Synology FS 1018. And with a 10 gig networking card in it, we're going to actually get some real performance testing, and we're going to be able to see some actual true throughput using a 10 gig, a device that's capable of doing the IOPS for 10 gig. And the other thing this is going to be great for is for virtual machines. So what we'll probably end up doing is doing a bunch of videos around this about putting iSCSI on here. We'll probably run the Synology Virtual Machine Manager on here and see what kind of performance we get on a Windows 10 virtual machine, a Windows Server, that kind of thing, maybe even some Linux machines. So without further ado, let's get this thing out of the box and take a look at it. Good old Sascha. He even included a note apologizing. You British, you're so proper. Apologies for the packaging. Hopefully the treats made it in one piece. Oh, there are treats in here. I would think, Sascha, that the FS system alone is treat enough for me. But let's dig into this. Hopefully there's nothing in here ticking. Ticking. Oh boy, here we go. We do have some treats. So, 10 Castel, can you see this, folks? Welsh cakes. And they're nice and soft and ready to eat. I'm a diabetic. I really shouldn't be eating this, but because Sascha went to the trouble to include, I'll make sure I eat some of these, and I'll give some to my spouse. So they came out just fine, Sascha. Thank you very much. Oh, here we go. Now I see something in here from my spouse. Also some Cadbury Roses. That's very kind of you. Again, I can't eat them. Diabetic. I'll have one maybe. But there's a scrumptious bunch of chocolates. You Brits have a way with words. And of course it's all in the metric system. It's all in grams, kilograms, and kilojoules. You know, us Americans, we're a little dumb when it comes to the metric system. But thank you, Sascha. That was very kind. We'll get good use out of that. And then various packaging material. And we're going to pop that right over there in the corner. And then I'm going to let Jerry do the honors of actually taking this out of the box, so that if he does drop it, I have the, I can yell it and blame it all on him. So Jerry, if you'll reach in there and take that out, and then I'm going to just move it to the side over by your chair, and then I'm going to move the box and you can put it on the table. There we go. And yes, Sascha, that was a horrible packaging job, but I will tell you, what counts is it seems to have gotten all here in one piece, so no complaints. I'm going to let Jerry go ahead and take the packaging off, and then we'll take a good long look at this thing. Now, Sascha also has a company in the UK called Blue Telecoms, and so if you need assistance with VoIP systems, or even VoIP service in the UK area, or in the UK, not an area, it's a country, you moron. I'll pop his information down below in the notes. Boy, this is a well-built unit. Mine is plastic. This thing is metal. The first thing you notice is it's rather heavy. So let's see. I think what we're going to need to do is get some light on this subject. The one thing I will tell you is it is a lot smaller in person. In fact, it's only a little bit larger than my DS918, but keep in mind these are only 2.5-inch drive bays that are in here, not 3.5-inch. So, but it is built like a tank. It appears it's very heavy. It's got a metal box around it. The front is plastic. I'm getting ready to open the drive sleds and just give you an idea, and then we'll flip it around and take a look at the back side to see what's on there. Like I said, this is about a $1,600 or $1,700 US purchase, and that's minus your SSD drives. But if we were going to do a lot of machine virtualization or databases and that kind of thing, I think this would be well suited to that task. So on the front you get 6 drive bays on each side. So the drive bays, I believe they just open like that. You push on the side with the key lock, and then you got your drive bay right there. We'll start over here on this side, then I'll just show you how easy it is to mount one of these drives. Thank you, Jerry.
Welcome.
Lite-On makes these, so the same folks that make power supplies and whatnot made these evidently for Dells. These came factory standard with the Dells we got. So you have to put them in at an angle. There we go. Now they lock in place. Much better. So as you can see, once the drive is mounted in there, you get the 2 little nipples on that side mounted up, and then you flip these 2 little levers, make sure the drive is flat, and then basically insert it back into the Synology, and it's that easy. On the front also, you can't see it, but there is a USB 3 port right there. I can see on the front, you got your power button, you got your status, your alert button, your LAN 1, LAN 2, LAN 3, LAN 4. This has 4 internal 1 gig networking cards. Alright, so on the back of the unit, we have a universal power plug on the back, on the left-hand side. And I assume this unit will work for either 120 or 240 volt. It should have an auto switching power supply. Should do that automatically because I don't see a switch on the back of it. You'll see right underneath the power plug you have a Kensington lock port. You have an expansion port. That's what this little port is right here. An expansion port. You have another expansion port right over here. Now, my Synology DS918 has an eSATA plug, the red one on the back. This one has simply 2 USB 3s. I don't see an eSATA port at all. So it looks like you can, you can put 2 expansion ports on here. I don't know how many you can use. There's your 4 1 terabyte NIC cards, and then of course here's your 10 gig internal network card. So yeah, pretty basic setup. 2 fans to keep it nice and cool, that kind of stuff. The serial number is right on the back along with the MAC addresses. So now let's open this thing up and let's see what it contains inside. Mr. Jerry, my lovely bald assistant, is going to take the screws out so we can take a look inside. So that cover should just lift straight up now. Maybe up into the back a little bit. There it goes. This is why I have Jerry do this stuff, because he's nice and cautious. Now, if you'll go ahead and turn that this way so our audience can get a view of the inside of the unit. You're not Vanna White. But you are a huge ham. Okay, so there's the 10 gig networking card. Now, I don't know that this is the authorized Synology card. I don't care, as long as it works. And I know if Sascha had put it in there, it must work. So you can see the main board down below that blue board. And it looks like this unit has seen a little bit of service. It's pretty darn clean inside. Now my lovely assistant will turn it to the other side so we can take another look at it. So they've had some problems in the past with their power supplies, not on this specific model, and they've had some problems with their CPUs as well. But I believe they've rectified it. It was only a couple of models they had problems in. Now, if you were affected by those models, then of course your opinion of Synology may have soured. But keep in mind, all manufacturers have stuff break. But yeah, it's a nice looking little machine. It's got a weighty build to it. I mean, you know, you're basically paying for the Synology software on these. It's why the prices on these are, some people find them a little excessive. I think they're reasonable considering what all, once you really get into all the software that Synology offers, you start to go, now I get it. Because folks, 10 years ago, us Microsoft people were praying for something like a Synology NAS. It was an all-in-one kind of solution for a small business. And if you're doing virtualization or doing a lot of database and stuff, then this might be a good fit for you because, again, it's going to be full of SSD drives. Well, we're going to put 8 out of 12 in there and see what kind of performance we get. Now, I'm going to go handheld because I don't see any... Jerry, can you come over here and flip this upside down? Just flip it right up on its side here. And let's see if we can see a port underneath there. Yeah, we do. See that panel underneath there is for the NVMe drives or for the RAM, one of the two. So go ahead and stand it on its edge, Jerry, and let's get that cover open and see what's underneath there. The great unveiling. Yeah, so that's where your RAM is going to go. So I don't know where they have the, you know, now that I think about it, the optional NVMe may be a card that I believe on this unit you could either have a 10 gigabit networking card or you could have the NVMe card in there for caching. We're not going to be using caching. If I believe correctly, you can even set up some of these SSD drives as caching drives. So in theory, we could put the 260 gig SSDs in there and then use the two of the 120 gig SSDs as caching drives. But don't quote me on that. We'll see once we get into it. All right, so there you go. You've seen the inside. You've seen the outside. You've got the specs on this unit. I will, of course, look up the CPU, the actual CPU speed, and how much RAM we can stick in this. It looks like it only has one stick of RAM in it, but I didn't look at it, to be honest with you. So what we're going to do next, well, is boot the unit up and start getting things configured. However, not in this episode, folks. So that's going to do it for this video here. I'll come back in a second and we'll go over the exact specs of the machine, but that's as far as we're going to go on this machine today. So you got that to look forward. More videos with the FS 1018 flash station from Synology. An item that without Sascha's gracious donation or offer of loan of this unit, I would never have the ability to get my hands on. The funds just would not allow it. So a super shout out to Sascha. Again, I cannot thank you enough for loaning us this unit to do some videos on. All right, so let's, we're now over at the Synology website on the flash station, FS 1018. So let me give you the specs. It's got a dual core turbo boost CPU up to 2.6 gigahertz, comes with 8 gig of DDR4 ECC RAM. That's good. You can have up to 32 gig. They claim over 40,000 iSCSI 4K random write IOPS. and I will certainly do my best to put that to the test. And you can connect up to 2 additional DX1215 expansion units. Those are rather old. Those are from 2015, aren't they? Yeah, that's how they do their numbering scheme. So let's see, supercharging. You can put a 10 gig Ethernet card in there, which Sascha has already done when he says it's got a 5-year warranty on it. This is a higher end unit, so it also qualifies for the Synology replacement service. Now, what they talk about here is RAID F1. Now, on these higher-end Synology units, they do not have Synology Hybrid RAID set up. It's not even an option on there. There is a way to enable it. It is not supported. In the higher-end commercial units, they want you to use like a traditional RAID, like RAID 1 or RAID 0 or RAID 5 or RAID 10, etc. But on this unit, they talk about this RAID F1, which RAID 1 is mirroring, simply mirroring of volumes. So I'm going to have to do a little research on this and see exactly. They have a white paper on it, so I'm going to have to see exactly what they're talking about on this RAID F1 before we start configuring volumes on here. And then, of course, they talk about the next generation file system for advanced data protection using BTRFS. Virtual machine manager. So you got snapshotting, live migration, multi-tenant environment. One other thing is it's fully certified virtualization storage for VMware, Windows Server 2016, 12, Citrix, and OpenStack. Let's see, snapshot replication, high availability, hyper backup, cloud station, all the other software you have on any other Synology NAS you have on this unit as well. So, yeah, but we'll have to look into this RAID F1. I'll have to read the white paper, see if my primitive ape brain can understand it, and then share it with you. And then if we go to the specs, we'll see it's an Intel Pentium D1508. You know, one thing I don't understand about Synology is they charge, this box here is $1,600. They could put a better processor in these things, like a quad core or even I'm wondering if they couldn't even use an AMD Ryzen in here, but it is what it is. But it just seems, they charge so much money for these boxes, and I understand why, because you are paying for the software as well, and their support, and, etc. But also keep in mind that all of their Synology software is not free. For example, if you run the Synology surveillance station, that software is very expensive per license. That's one of my complaints with Synology. Also, the virtualization, you can virtualize 2 to 5 machines. I don't know. I'll have to check that. But then they charge you a license fee over that, and I'm kind of opposed to that. If they're going to charge so much for the box, they should include the at least 5 camera licenses, you would think, and maybe at least 5 virtual machines, but I digress. You can expand the RAM up to 32 gig with 2 16 gig sticks, so you would have to get rid of one of those 8 gig sticks, so you're going to lose that. It has a single PCI expansion port inside. You can get the, and like I thought when I was showing you the device, that you could either choose over a PCI Ethernet or a PCI Express Ethernet card, or an MD or an M2 D18 dual M2 SSD adapter card. And I'm assuming you could assign a couple of the SSDs in the drive array to be caching drives as well. We'll find out when we actually start loading that up with drive. Now the RAM in here is ECC SODIMMs, so they're going to be a little more expensive than non-ECC RAM, and especially in the SODIMM format, they're a little more expensive because there isn't such a demand for those. It comes with an 8 gig module pre-installed, but if you were to go to the full 32 gig, you're going to have to take out that 8 gig module and not use it anymore and replace it with 2 of the 16 gig modules. The weight is 5.2 kilograms. Like I said, it's a well-built unit. It's heavy. The system fans are replaceable. They're just 92 mil fans. Noise level 28 decibel, and I will attest that this thing is pretty quiet. That's a shocker. The power supply in it is 250 watts. It doesn't look that large, but it is a 250 watt power supply. And supposedly when you're accessing this, it'll consume 107 watts with 50 watts at idle. I've got one drive in it right now, and I think it's consuming 40 watts with one drive in it and not doing anything else. So, and we'll keep track of the wattage, the power usage. So there you go. So it has supported RAID types. Here we go. RAID F1, which we're going to do some work on. Basic, JBOD, RAID 0, 1, 5, 6, and 10. Then the RAID migration it supports, volume expansion. So you can expand a RAID F1 volume. Okay, that's good. We'll have to do a little research on that because I'm not at all familiar with RAID F1. I'm sure it's some term that Synology has coined. So then the VMware vSphere with VAAI, Windows Server 2012, 2012 R2, 2016. I'm sure they'll get 2019 and they're eventually Citrix ready and OpenStack ready. And then they list the specification. And like we were talking about with their licensing, like their email server, it's got the potential to be a good mail server. It's easy to set up and easy to use, but they only give you 5 licenses. A small mom and pop business, that should be fine. But when you get over that, then you have to start competing with something like Office 365 online or a Gmail suite online, that kind of thing. And it just doesn't make sense to run your own mail server after that. So we're going to have to test Plex on this and see if it supports hardware transcoding, because I'm not real clear if it does or not. Again, this is a commercial grade unit, so I don't know if they expected people to be running things like Plex or MB on here with hardware acceleration for the re-encoding of the video or streaming of the video, but we'll test it. But there you go, there's the specs. So there you go, YouTube. We hope you found the video entertaining and informative as always. Again, a special shout out to Sascha in the UK for sending us this unit to play with for a while. And I said 2 to 3 months. It'll probably be 2 months, but we'll see how long Sascha lets me keep it before he wants it back. And, it just brings up the subject. Without the continued support of subscribers like yourself and like Sascha, this channel wouldn't be possible. I love doing these videos, but I'm not a rich man. And in order to get stuff in to do new content, it does take some donations and support from end users. And you guys have been great lately. We are very close to our goal of getting our new Ryzen system in here that we're going to play around with Unraid on. So keep the donations coming if you're so inclined. So yes, we appreciate each and every one of you and any contribution you make. And if you can't contribute financially, don't worry about it. Your comments are just fine down in the comment section, and your participation is what we're really after. So please don't forget to come back and see us again. And don't forget, we will see you on the other side.